Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fantasy for the Ages, the show where usually father and son sit down and talk about Wheel of Time, other fantasy and science fiction, and random nerdiness that we feel like talking about. I'm Jim. I'm the father of this podcast YouTube show, and I don't have Zach with me today, which is very rare because it's a Wheel of Time episode. And he always does these with me. But just minutes before we were supposed to go, maybe it was half an hour before we were supposed to go. Whatever. Zach lets me know, Dad, can't do it. But he's typing because I don't think he could have talked. He thinks he has strep throat. He's been down all day. Nothing's been bouncing back. So I was like, okay. One time I did one of these Wheel of Time episodes alone, and it was boring. I think it was okay, but that's a lot of me just talking. So I said, who might be willing to jump in last minute? And next to me on the screen is the person I thought of. I asked no one else. I said, Karri, how about this? You want to come on? Because she's a first-time reader who's just a little bit further than where we are in the fires of heaven. Her mind's fresh. I thought she'd be perfect for this, and she said yes. So say hi, Karri.
Hi guys, Karri here, first time reader.
She's now a YouTuber. Look at that. Boom. It's that simple. Oh, really have to thank you for joining us here, and we're gonna have a good time talking about 4 amazing chapters from the Fires of Heaven. If those of you watching this enjoy what we talk about, and even if you just want to do it because Karri was here and was so awesome, like the episode and feel free to subscribe. Who knows? Maybe you'll see her again. Maybe she's so terrified by the end of this she'll never come back. We'll find out. But we're going to try to have a good time and not scare her off. As always, as we get into this, we talk about a couple of things. One is just to say, hey, how you doing today? So, Karri, how's your day been today?
Well, let's see. I went to work, and I don't have to work tomorrow, so today is kind of like my Friday. So that's
there
that's
you
a big
go.
plus.
I'm in the same boat. Don't have to work tomorrow. Yeah.
So
and it was a day. It came. It went.
Oh yeah, it went by fast. I work in accounting, so doing the whole month end, quarter end, close, all that fun stuff.
I've spent a lot of my professional career working in schools, and we really value the people who know the numbers, because most educators don't. They rely on somebody who can manage the books and make sure we don't mess it up.
Oh yeah.
So good skills, valuable. My day, I actually was working from home today, and it was a long day. It was a long 2 days, because that's been my week. I was gone on vacation through Tuesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, nothing but, oh my goodness, look at this mountain of email and all these phone messages and trying to catch up with all of this. And I did not succeed. I got close. There's still a few things waiting for next week now. But it made the time fly.
And how was your trip, Jim?
Oh, the trip was amazing. Who doesn't love a cruise? Getting out there in the Caribbean with beautiful blue water and warm temperatures and ultimate drink package. It's vacation.
I've never been on a cruise, and I just keep thinking about Titanic, so not my idea of a vacation. Do they have enough lifeboats? Or life vests?
They do now, supposedly. I don't know. I'm never going to want to test that part. But, these ships, they're a lot more advanced than the Titanic was. I can tell you that. And so relaxing. You can barely feel you're on a boat. But you can see. You look out the windows. Ooh, we're on a boat. But so much to do, so much to see, and so much to eat. I have to admit, I get off a cruise, I have to immediately start working harder to lose some weight because you pick up pounds. But get past your Titanic thing, you might enjoy a cruise someday. It's a really fun vacation.
Maybe someday.
There you go. All right. Well, the other thing definitely always talk about before we get into content is what we're drinking. Zach is always up to something. I'm up to something. I just went with a go-to today, and I've got a nice 3-olive dirty vodka martini today. And they're always good. I should have been original and created something, especially with a guest with me, but it was a long day of work and I was exhausted. So, no, just went with a solid. What do you have to drink today?
And I have water. Yay.
Agua. A fine
honey.
23 blend of water, and water. Awesome. I had another guest on recently, episode where I had an author on, John Palladino, talking about his book, which, by the way, The Trials of Ashmount. I'm pitching it to everybody. He's an indie author, self-published. It is a fantastic fantasy book. So, encouraging people to check it out, read it. It's one of the best things I've read in quite a while. If you're a Wheel of Time fan, it's a little grittier. It's not quite grim dark. It's more like, grim hope, grim cheer. It's like it's got enough lightness to it that Wheel of Time fans ought to be able to enjoy it. But if you're a true grimdark fan, you'll still enjoy it as well. But he came on the episode and he was also drinking water. And most people don't drink enough water, so good on you. That's what you need to do.
Well, I admit I don't drink enough water, but I figured if I'm going to be talking a lot, I should have water nearby, so.
That's a good principle. And, first time on the podcast, it'll also perhaps help your memory and ideas stay clear.
I hope so.
Okay. Well, there's only one other question I want to ask about before we move into content, and that is, what are you reading these days?
Well, that's a very funny. Well, see, that's the very funny question, because everybody knows I'm kind of like on the 5-year plan of reading The Wheel of Time, because these books are so huge and they take forever.
They are.
And
they're massive.
Just today, my spine is breaking on my paperback. So
that hurts when that happens. My copy of The Eye of the World, literally the book fell out of the jacket eventually. Paperback, it just fell out, and then pieces started coming out. So I, of course, have a new copy.
I many years ago when I first fell into The Wheel of Time, when I first started reading the first time. I used to love traveling to used bookstores and finding additional copies of books I didn't have yet, whether it was paperback or hardback. And it was like a good treasure hunt. I didn't really request it. I just wanted to see it on the shelf so I can grab it. So this is one of the ones I got many years ago. That's, aging and falling apart.
There you go. Since Zach and I decided to do the podcast, I made sure I went ahead and filled out my library with all the nice hardcovers now, with the original illustrations.
Oh, yeah, I would love to have that someday.
Yeah, I got them through Barnes & Noble, and I had a membership, so they weren't as expensive, but still, it's like $35 a piece.
Oh, yeah.
It adds up a little bit.
I have about half.
They have a treasured shelf now. Yeah.
I have about half hardback, half soft, so I'm working on it.
That's where I was before I decided to replace the rest. Yep.
So
the Wheel of Time is plenty to enjoy, but are you reading anything else?
I don't have time to read anything else. Wheel of Time is my life right now, unfortunately.
What a full life, though.
Being a mom of 2 kids, I barely get enough time to read as it is. Which is another reason why it's taken me forever to read these. Is I try to get little tidbits of time throughout the day when I can actually read. So,
now, Karri, tell us, how old are your kids?
My kids are 8 and 10.
When do you introduce them to the Wheel of Time?
Oh, I've already started. So
yes.
Well, let me clarify that to all who's watching. If you find me on Twitter, you will see that I have a hashtag Wheel of Time with Kids, and that is something that I invented when I joined Twitter shortly after the show came out. I wanted something unique that I could, start. And the thing that kids do where they say the darnest things, and people find it
Yes.
funny. So I kind of like took that on, but applied it to Wheel of Time. So my kids are constantly saying funny things related to Wheel of Time. Like my daughter paraded around the bedroom one day and she's like, "Look at me, I'm Moraine," said I. And then one time I pronounced, I said Aes Sedai instead of Aes Sedai, and she's like, "Mommy,
Oh,
it's not Aes Sedai, it's Aes Sedai."
she corrected you.
She
That's
corrected
classic.
me. And, like, if you go on my Twitter, you'll see all these things when you click on the link. But, funny stuff like, "Mommy, you love these books more than me," or "You love The Wheel of Time more than us." I'm like, I can't believe you said that, but it's so funny.
This is gold. I
So,
got to go back and hunt that hashtag. That's wonderful.
every now and then, and in relation to this episode that you're recording, my daughter likes to read a few pages before she goes to bed on occasion, like a bedtime story to herself with me next to her. So she'll pick up a
Mhm.
random page in my book and start reading. And she's like, "Mommy, can I read a few
She
pages
didn't
tonight?"
do those pages.
She said, "Can I read a few pages tonight?" And at the time, I was on chapter 31. I was like, "Oh my God,
Oh no.
no, you cannot read tonight. No, of all the nights, not tonight." And she was like, "But why?" I'm like, "Because I said so." I don't know. Like, tonight is not the night to read from my book. I didn't realize, because everything is very subtle in the books and
Mhm.
off the page mostly, but sometimes there are references to things that happen, and if you're old enough, you would understand. So I do not want her to read chapter
And
31.
this is pretty in your face blatant in this particular chapter. So, yeah. That's a
But
conversation you didn't want to have.
the first time she read a few pages, it was all a description of a stable yard as the group arrived in a city. And it was like 2.5 pages of horses and stables. And I'm like, this is hilarious. This is Robert Jordan at his best, the world building and the descriptions.
Yes. Yes indeed. All right, well let's get into these chapters then. We will get to 31 eventually, but we're starting with chapter 29, and then we're going to go through 30, 31, and 32 here today. None of these are particularly long chapters, but there's some great stuff that happens in them.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Chapter 29 is called Memories of Saldaea, and it begins with a unique POV, that of Kadir, the peddler. The one leading the wagon train of objects of the power for Moraine Sedai, along with Rand and all the Aiel. Now, as readers may recall, in the previous book, we had full confirmation that Kadir is a dark friend, and that Rand knows it, but that for complicated reasons, it's best Rand continues to pretend that he doesn't know it. So Kadir still thinks he's in the clear, and he has continued on traveling with them, but he'd rather make himself scarce if he could, because he's working under the direction of an Aes Sedai, and that's not a real comfortable place for a dark friend. However, in this chapter, we're going to come to understand, yeah, Kadir can't go anywhere right now. He's kind of stuck. Kadir is an interesting character, and again, to have a POV chapter for him, that was kind of cool. Get a different insight into how this twisted mind works, because he is always the one who thinks he's the smartest person in the room, and seeing his perspective on things, we're getting that feeling. So even as he's stuck working with Moraine, hauling these items from Ruidian to Tar Valon, he's thinking about how it fits into his plans. Not like he had a choice. And he knows it's dangerous for his type in Tar Valon, hauling these things there, but he's thinking, Tar Valon's not so bad. There's always important and invigorating work to be found in Tar Valon. Now, what do you suppose that might mean? What kind of work would Kadir be thinking he could latch onto in Tar Valon as a dark friend?
That's a very good question, Tim.
It is.
Um, let's see. A dark friend in Tar Valon. Um, And
Is
Donald Duck.
Tarvalon the beacon of perfection with no bad people?
Oh, there's plenty of bad people there.
There is.
Would it
He
be him
probably.
maybe working with the Black Aja or something else?
That is a distinct possibility. I would assume Kadir, if he's as important as a dark friend as he seems to think he is, that he's got contacts even within the White Tower to be able to get some occasional job to do. Now, maybe I'm giving him more credit than he's worth. Maybe it's just people in Tarvalon, the city, that he has connections with.
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting the sense that dark friends know all is not right in Tarvalon because there's things that they can do there. That's a good insight on this world and how dark friends are thinking. What's mostly on Kadir's mind just now, though, as we come into this chapter, is that a note was slipped under his door earlier this evening. A note that read, "You are not alone among strangers. A way has been chosen." And he really wishes he could forget this note, as it just adds complications to matters he already feels are complicated enough. What's the problem with the note? I mean, there's kind of two things here, maybe three. What can you see would be an issue with this note appearing under his door?
Maybe somebody else would be involved with what's going on and he doesn't want other people to know his business.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that he's a dark friend, that's a secret.
Yeah.
Not so cool if there's somebody else out there who he doesn't know, who appears to know. That's not so good. There was also something specific about the way the note was worded that bothered him. Did you catch it? There's a key word that's used here that has deeper meaning for dark friends.
Is it the word chosen? Or okay.
Because put a capital C on that word.
And it's another name
chosen,
for Forsaken.
Forsaken, yes. So it's he's thinking this is not a coincidence. Someone is being subtle in putting a message in here. And what he's reading into this is he might be getting pulled into plans that would not be good for him. Again, complications.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as he's thinking through, as he's processing these things, we also learn a few key tidbits of recent events that have happened in the life of Kadir. 2 months ago, his new partner, Kylie, disappeared. Right after Jason Natal ditched him to attach himself to Rand. Kadir doesn't know why Natal did that, and he doesn't know really what happened to Kylie. So we learn here that Kylie had been his new partner. Okay, when he appeared in the Waste as a traveling merchant group, and he's sort of in charge, although Kylie seemed to have no issue bossing him around. Okay, they were new working together. We get this now in Kadir's thoughts. And he didn't really know where they came from, but they were working together, and now she's gone. And his suspicion is that Kadir thinks Natal maybe killed her for some reason. And her body is buried out in the waste somewhere and never to be discovered. Now, we know a lot more about Kylie and Natal than Kadir does. So what is this telling us about Kadir? It's giving us a little bit.
Well, he is being used by others, but his information is very limited on what he's given. So he's trying to be cautious of his dealings with others, but he also probably has trust issues with people.
I just suppose most dark friends do. I have found that the way people look at the world, bringing real life into this, the way people look at the world is the way they assume most people look at the world. So a dark friend, his filter is how he judges everyone else. Thus, he doesn't trust anybody because he doesn't think anyone's trustworthy because he's not trustworthy. That kind of all goes together there. I love the fact that we know who Kylie was. Remind our viewers, who was Kylie?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. Oh, wait. Oh, nope. I know. Was that Lanfear in disguise?
Yes, that was Lanfear in disguise.
I got to remember back to the last.
Right. Okay, so that was Lanfear in disguise, which was a hilarious disguise because Lanfear, the most beautiful woman in the world, disguised as this really obese woman who no one would describe as beautiful. Although the book mentions multiple times how light on her feet she seemed. Duh, because she was just Lanfear, really. But anyways, that's a subtle thing not everybody catches the first time reading. I don't know if you had caught it the first time through.
I probably missed it, but it makes sense.
Yeah. It's a subtle little clue Robert Jordan puts in there that I missed the first time through. I caught it on a reread. So this is how we help our first-time readers. And who do we know Jason Nuttall really is?
Could that be Asmodean?
Could it be? Yes. But again, Kadir has no clue. Nothing. But Kadir thinks he knows everything. So, yeah, that's funny. I like that we've learned that about him. Now, just after Kylie disappeared, Lanfear appeared to Kadir. And she gave him orders, things to do. But she appeared to him in a dream. And she left a scar on his chest, and he kind of subconsciously rubs where this mark still is. And that was her way of proving to him that even though it's a dream, this is real. I'm truly giving you this message. Therefore, what do we know about that dream? We've learned enough now. He was sucked into what?
He was sucked into the dream world, also known as Teleron, and
exactly,
it's a very dangerous place. Stuff that
what
happens there, you could get injured there, and you're going to have a scar when you wake up.
They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in Teleron stays with you always.
Oh, yeah.
So Lanfear gave him instructions. And again, this is right after the Kylie persona is not needed by Lanfear anymore. So she's ditched it, and all he knows is Kylie's gone. Lanfear is now giving him orders. But those orders aren't mentioned here. They're coming up, so we'll get back to them. But so he's under these orders, and now he's got this note under his door in a woman's hand. So there must be another dark friend around who somehow knows he's a dark friend and is working with a chosen, he's inferring from the note, which now has other means for him. And he's like, okay, well, that can't be Lanfear. Lanfear wouldn't send another dark friend to give him a message when she already zapped him on the chest in Teleron. That makes no sense. So he's picturing himself stuck between one chosen and another chosen. Not a good place for a dark friend.
Oh, yeah. The chosen are very demanding, and they don't want you to serve two masters. They want to be the one in charge. So
the only one, yes.
Yeah.
One last tidbit we get in this thought process is that the only reason Kadir had gone into the waste with his merchant wagon train in the first place was because Jason Nuttall and Kylie showed up at the same time to him with proof that they were high amongst dark friends, and they were saying, we need you to come with us into the waste. Otherwise, he would have just killed them. Because someone who knows he's a dark friend, that's a threat. The only reason he followed them was clearly because of signs they gave, things they knew. They were more important. They were higher in the chain of how things are set up in Dark Friend land. We don't know a lot of details there yet, but in some manner, they're above him. That's what he understood. So he would be best off working with them, trying to partner with them. than to do anything against them. But yeah, he would have killed them otherwise. So that's a little bit of the personality of Kadir. At this point, then, he's visited by another dark friend, but this one he knows about, a Sentry, completely covered under a full dark robe. And we learn, a Sentry is not just a dark friend here, she's working under Kadir's orders. Who knows, maybe he brought her into the dark side. But just like he was working under Natal and Kylie then, when they came to the waste, she's under him. Okay? She does his bidding. She follows his orders. And he gave her orders to get close to Rand and Natal, as close as possible. Because again, he doesn't know why Jason Natal has ditched him. What's going on here? Why are you hanging out with Rand now? And he's supposed to be keeping an eye on Rand and Natal. That's his orders from Lanfear. So he's using a Sentry to accomplish that. And specifically get as close as possible. Heck, woman, I want you in their bed. Because every man talks. So fantasy novels say. Every man talks freely in bed.
And she had trouble doing that because somebody else was always around Rand when she tried to approach him. And that was Avienda.
Yes. And in addition, Rand is always guarded by a bunch of maidens who believe Avienda and Rand are a thing. So every time a Sentry does catch Rand without Avienda around and tries to get close, she gets caught by maidens. And that doesn't go well. Now, that's been going on for a while. I mean, well back into the last book, that she'd been trying to get close to Rand. Now she's also trying to get close to Natal, and that one works. Apparently, she's been sleeping with Natal many a night. Because the maidens will allow that. They're like almost pushing her in to Natal's bed space. But, yeah, not Rand. But Kadir has not taken his orders off. He's like, you get in there. You find a way. You make it happen, woman, And he wants Natal observed because he's still trying to figure out, okay, Lanfear wants me to watch Natal, but I thought Natal was way up in the Dark Friends, almost as high as a Chosen. This is weird, but Lanfear said, so okay, we'll do that. But Rand is still kind of the primary target, and we need more for Lanfear. Because Kadir's, ready and waiting for when Lanfear is going to show up again and say, so, what do you have for me? And what you don't want to do to a Chosen is say, nothing. This does not end well. So, he's pushing. Well, a Sentry's job has gotten a lot harder since the end of the last book. Now, I don't remember how fresh it is for you, but right at the end of the book, Lanfear did something that put a Sentry into a whole bunch of hot water. Kadir references it when he's like, I never did understand why a Sentry stole from the Aiel a couple months ago. Now, do you remember what I'm talking about? What actually happened? It happens off screen. So we don't see it happen.
Okay.
When Rand and Asmodean are at Ruidian, and then what they do is done. Asmodean's beaten. Rand won. Victor. Okay. And then Lanfear shows up. There's a little conversation. And Lanfear makes a comment about a Sentry. And basically what she did is she took some jewelry, some gold, some stuff of the Aiel and put it in the Sentry's pack. And then arranged for that to be discovered. So a Sentry gets caught as a thief. But she didn't do it. She was set up by, Kylie. basically, by
Mm-hmm.
Lanfear. The question is, why did Lanfear lower herself to such a petty thing? Why did she set up a sentry? Any thoughts?
Because was this before or after she was taken as Gaishan?
Well, this happened. This is basically the time that happens.
Okay, so
as a
if you become a servant in the household of the Aiel, you're going to always be around him, near him, in the presence of Rand. So you're going to be closer to him everywhere he goes, basically, within that community. So
I like that. And I want to tell you, I hadn't thought of that. Look at Karri, bringing game right here to the episode.
I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
No, that's brilliant.
You're making me use my brain.
Speculation had only gone as far as, a Sendry had been trying to get close to Rand because that's what Kadir wanted. And maybe that's what a Sendry wanted. He's the man with power. I'm going to try to get close. And Lanfear didn't like it. So she decides to kind of be petty. And, she's kind of jealous of Rand. So I'm going to put a Sendry in her place and I'm going to see that she's punished. But your theory makes so much more sense.
Well, think of it two ways. Number one, she's going to be closer to his coming and goings and everything that goes on in the community, but she's also going to be treated poorly because of, are Gaishan treated poorly by the other Aiel?
Not usually, no. And technically, she's not Gaishan because she's not Aida.
Okay.
So they don't ever call her Gaishan.
Okay. So she's just kind of like an extra servant in the household.
They are treating her, making her a servant, making her do tasks. There's one stark, I use that word intentionally, one very stark difference when the punishment first happens for her. Do you remember how they make her go around?
I believe she had to wear she had to wear a bunch of jewelry and stuff? Like really heavy stuff? Yes.
So she's completely naked except all the jewelry she was caught with. Yeah. You wanted it? Well, you can have it. And nothing else. And then she's given tasks and having to do chores and all right there in front of Rand, So I could see Lanfear, liking this plan. If then she wants Kadir to have a Sendry keeping an eye on Rand. It's like, that kind of works. It's not working for the maidens, though. They do not want her trying to get into his bed. And she's continued to try because her boss, Kadir, has insisted, has pushed. And this evening, she's shown up with this big, heavy black cloak, and she's like constantly moving and twitching. And Kadir's like, what is up with her? And at this point, we get to find out what the deal is. Because she tried to sneak into Rand's bed again and was caught by the maidens again. And they punished her. And how they punished her was they shaved her completely. Every bit of hair, take that where you will in your mind, people, every bit of hair has been removed from her body. And then she was twitch is the wrong word, whipped, whatever, with nettles. Have you ever encountered nettles in the wild?
What are nettles? Are they something that...
They're like
prickly?
Poison ivy.
Oh.
Not quite as bad as poison ivy, but they are very itch-inducing.
Oh, that's must be
really irritate the skin. Again, not poison ivy level, but they're bad. And so she's just raw and itchy all over. And miserable. And they did that to her. And then they said, and this better stop. If you try again, we're going to turn you over to Avienda. And that's where the real horrors will begin. Now, they don't tell her what will happen. And sometimes punishment, this is actually a good parenting technique, so take notes. If you tell your children, oh, wow, you did that. Well, I'm going to have to think about that. There's definitely going to be a consequence, but I will get back to you. I'm going to think about that. And you don't tell them what's going to happen, that's almost worse than right away disciplining them. Because then their mind goes to all sorts of things that are going to happen. And by the time you discipline your child, they're almost thankful to be disciplined because now it's over. Oh, good. And they've created far worse than you would ever do to them. You know, and that kind of drives home, I don't want to misbehave. I don't want to step out of line. Because none of us parents like disciplining our children. We don't. We love our children. We want them to just be good kids. And if we discipline them, it's to help them make better choices, not because we're mad and want to whoop on them. We don't do that. So, oh, this, however, is not Parenting 101. So we will move on. But in this case, that's what they've done to her. They've just kind of implied Avienda will get you. And in a Sendry's mind, this is horrible because she is, well, what does she believe about a Sendry? Not a Sendry, she is a Sendry. About Avienda and Rand. What does she believe is going on?
She thinks they're an item and they're together all the time, even at night.
Every night. Shacking up. Yeah. So you're going to turn me over to the woman who's sleeping with Rand and considers him hers? I'm a dead woman. You know, that's kind of what's in her mind then. Of course, she's wrong. They've not done it. Not at all. But she has a wetland perspective. If you're sleeping together, you must be sleeping together. It's understandable. It's been confusing to Rand. Kadir realizes at this point, as the Sendry is basically saying, don't make me do anything more with Rand. This girl is broken. She is useless. There is no more I can get from her because she's caved, she's fragile, she is of no use to me. So he kills her. Rather graphically. I mean, we've not seen anything to this degree up to this point.
I was shocked when I read this part, but I'll be honest with you, it made me think of the TV show You, and I felt like, okay, now you need Joe to go hide the body for you, because it just reminded me of that show so much.
And there will be some hiding the body, but that's kind of disgusting the way he goes about it. Because not only does he strangle her right there on screen for us in the book, but then he gets out his knife and he's going to cut her into little itty bitty bits. And,
just like Joe would have done, you know? So.
Sure enough. And we get another dark piece of Kadir here. We'll get a lot of dark pieces of Sendry, but that's a different topic. But for Kadir, he goes back in his mind. Now, early in the chapter, I didn't mention it when it happened. Early in the chapter, he was thinking of his younger days in Saldaea and his sister, who he loved very much. And now he thinks of her again, and oh yeah, dang it, that time he had to kill her. Because she figured out he was a dark friend. So even way back then at home, he'd become a dark friend. She figured it out, and he killed her. He will do anything to hide his secret. And so as Sendry, he's killed, not just because she's useless to him, but because she's now broken. And the next thing you know, she's going to be blabbing all the secrets. And he'll be fingered. Not taking that chance. So she's done. She's gone. And we get a taste, just a little taste of Kadir's twisted darkness as he hums a little lullaby as he chops a Sendry's body up into little pieces. Ugh. End of chapter. Let's move on to
don't let your kids read that chapter.
it will give them some bad dreams. Which is better than giving them ideas. We don't need another Dexter. Okay,
Oh, no.
chapter 30, a wager. We move to Rand's perspective. Enough of Kadir. Yuck. Okay, Rand's perspective. Sitting in the midst of the Kyrian town of Ianrod in a moment of contemplation. And what do we learn? Rand is alone outside right now because he's seeking some peace. Moraine has been tirelessly bugging him all the time, striving to spend every moment with him, regurgitating everything in her head that he needs to know this. Just cram, cram, cram. She seems desperate to share an unbelievable amount of knowledge before they get to Kyrian. She has literally recently begged for more time with him, and he found that very disturbing. She should not be begging. That just seems wrong.
Well, you just got to
I'm
open up
thinking of
his.
how Nynaeve would feel about that. And yeah, that is wrong.
Just open up his schedule and book an appointment. What else you need to do?
I mean, come on, use his Calendly and get on there. That's right. He continues, though, to try to find time away from Moraine so he can study with Asmodean. And she does not know about Asmodean. You know, she doesn't understand why he spends so much time with the Gleeman.
Maybe
But
he's
Rand
trying to learn a new
is the
song.
boss. Maybe, you know, it's preparation for when Avienda teaches him to sing. He's got to have a song. Anyways, he, of course, makes time because Asmodean is still teaching him how to do things with the power. And that's important to him. Yes, he respects Moraine enough that I'll listen to what you have to say, but I need to have my Asmodean time. We also get that the land is very dry. There's a drought happening. And there's a river right there next to this town he's in, and it's like not even half as wide as usual. Okay, that's just something to note. And Rand, seeing how dry everything is, has actually tried to use the power to make it rain. Guys do that walking into bars and just throwing money, but that's not how it works in Randland. So he tries to channel rain. He did this once before in our last book, but it was reflex. And he doesn't know what he did, and he can't remember. And Asmodean claims, yeah, it's not something I was ever any good at. I really don't know how to make rain fall, how to impact the weather. That surprises Rand. What does he learn about the Forsaken that he didn't necessarily realize by Asmodean saying that?
Well, people believe that the Forsaken are all-knowing, all-powerful, but people need to realize that they're kind of like similar to us. They have strengths and weaknesses, and they're ignorant over a lot of things too. So
exactly, yeah. That's a good thing for him to come to grips with. Realize they're just people. Yeah, they've got power, but they're not omnipotent. Then Rand, in his thoughts, as he's just recollecting here, he also thinks, oh yeah, you know, Semirhage was also bad at handling the weather. Now, Semirhage is another of the Forsaken, and Rand, after he has that thought, is like, oh crap, that's not cool. Asmodean didn't tell me that. Why do I know that? So why is that bad? Why does that trouble Rand?
He is starting to have more and more memories of being Luthern Telemon, and he's just kind of getting confused on what are his own memories versus what are memories from a previous person.
Yeah. So, Karri, as a first-time reader, remember this. Pay attention to this bothering him. This is something to just keep an eye
on.
Okay. At this point, there's one more thing in his thoughts that happen. It talks about there's been some freak things, random chance things happening around him. Like a guy who just trips over a little pebble and breaks his neck. Or someone who has a terrible fall and somehow doesn't have a scratch. And this reminds us of something about things that happen about Rand. And what is that? We learned about this all the way back in the Dragon Reborn. Right?
Are we talking about Taviran?
And not
Or
just Taviran, but how massively Taviran Rand is. Yeah. He sways the odds in ridiculous ways. So things that could happen, but likely would never happen, will happen around Rand. And so he doesn't have control of this, but he knows it's happening because of him. Now, at this point, Rand executes an activity that he'd set up in advance, but intentionally to take place while Moraine was asleep. Perhaps he doesn't want her to know about it, or maybe he just, I don't want her meddling, whatever. But he had sent Ruark and some Aiel to gather up some of the nobles of the region to bring them to him. And so he and an escort of some 50 maidens of the spear, led by Sulin, who's kind of like a general of the maidens. He had arranged so that he would meet. So he and the maidens go out to a spot where Ruark and these nobles that he and his guys have brought have come together. He's going to connect with the lords of this land, and a little more than that. So this group is led by a couple of Terran lords. So these are guys who he had sent from Tyr back in the beginning of the last book, where he sent that group up on a humanitarian mission to Cairhien. So we have here Astine and Adorian. And some info is shared here. First, Rand reveals to the Terrans, they're like, oh, they captured you? The Dragon Reborn? It's like, no. They told you they were bringing you to He Who Comes with the Dawn, the Karakarn. Yeah, that's me too. Okay? I'm all that. I'm the guy. He is racking up some titles. They also brought a couple of Cairhienan lords along, Maricin and Daracane, or Daracane. I don't know. We make up how to say these names. Have you noticed in the appendix at the end of the books, it doesn't tell you how to pronounce names? It gives you definitions and explanations, but no
yes, you're
pronunciation.
correct.
It's like, yeah, Robert Jordan basically saying, I don't care. Make it up. Whatever you want. And if you go back and listen to some of the old recordings of Robert Jordan talking about some of these characters at different times, he actually pronounces different names different ways.
I've heard about that. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. There's big
Egwene,
debate.
He record 3 different pronunciations. But she is not ever Egwene. Never.
Queenie.
Egwene. What an Egwene. Okay. Anyways, these 2 Cairhienan lords, the Terrans, are clearly looking down upon. They are our lessers. Rand's not cool with that. He's like, I sent you up here to help these guys, not to lord it over these guys. Cut that out. He learns from these people, though, that the Shido are attacking the city of Cairhien. And it's been going on for days now. As far as they know, the city still holds, but they need help, and that's why the lords were out here. That's why Ruark and his Aiel were able to bring them to Rand. They've come out to try to find some help. They didn't know Rand was coming. But, oh, here he is. Hey, Rand. Oh, buddy. Hey. We also learned that Couladin, the one in charge of those Aiel, has claimed to be He Who Comes with the Dawn. It's like, Rand's like, nah, poser. Total poser. But Couladin has been working hard to wear down the people of Cairhien. He's been capturing some of these Cairhienans and torturing them within sight of the walls, so they can see what they're doing, playing around with them, shooting target practice and whatever, and hear the screams and the wails. Now, how did he get a hold of some of these? Well, we learned the Cairhienans had, sealed the gates and buckled down. And in our past experience with Cairhien, which was in Book 2, The Great Hunt, there was a foregate, a region of the city that had grown out beyond the walls. And it's where more of the merchants and peasants were living, not where the proper lords and ladies were. Well, they didn't let those people in when the Aiel came. They just barred the gates. So the Aiel burned the foregate and captured all those people, and these are the ones becoming pincushions. Not cool. But this is how our Kyrianan mind works. By the way, Kyrian, is that how you would have said it when you first read this word?
Kyrian? Kyrianan? Or no?
The city is Kyrian. The people are Kyrianans. But when you look at it, what did your mind say?
It's pronounced not how it looks, so you gotta...
Some would say it's pronounced exactly as it looks.
Really?
Some would say
Kyrianan? But I just think of it as
that city.
Kyrian.
When I first read the books, it was totally Karheen.
Ah.
I saw Karheen. That's Karheen. Then later on, I got into the community and talking to people. Oh, Kyrian? Oh. Well, that does sound classier. So I started using it. And if you listen to the audiobooks, that's how they pronounce it too. Kyrian. So I'm like, I'm there. Okay. Karheen, my young free days, but Kyrian. We tangented. Okay, back to where we were. So they're here now with Rand saying, please, can you come help? We came to find help. Can you do that? And Rand assures them, yes, we will come. But they're like, oh, but even so, this is taking so long. I don't know if you can be there in time. You know, from here, it's going to, I mean, you guys don't have horses. Most of them are Aiel. They're on foot. And so they're like, it'll take you, I mean, at minimum 12 days to get there. I don't see how you'd ever get there faster. And Rand turns to Ruark and say, what do you think? It's like 7. We can do it in 7 days. And they're like, no way. No, 7 days. All right, cool. And he's like, you guys go back and tell them, go full out on your horses to hold on. We're coming within a week. We'll do the Gandalf. Look for us at dawn in the west, and we will be there on the 7th day. Now, a humorous element occurs here because Adorian, one of those one of the Tyrant lords, asks him to make a bet on that. Oh, I love this. You've got the Kyrianan lords who are going, oh, thank you, Lord Rand. Oh, that's marvelous. And, groveling and practically kissing his boots. But the Tyrant lords, they have a higher opinion of themselves. And Adorian, okay, I don't know if you remember this, but Adorian is someone we met in The Dragon Reborn. I'm doing this from memory. I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty positive.
Somebody that was causing trouble in Tyr?
No. I'm pretty positive both he and Estienne, who's with them, were two of the guys playing cards with Matt when the cards came to life. In that scene where they're gambling in a tavern outside of the stone.
The bubbles of evil.
So we've met them that one time. And so we know they like a good gamble. So Adorian, he offers a wager, 1,000 gold crowns, that Rand can have those Aiel to the city within 7 days. Basically, that sounds impossible. So I'll bet you. Now, Rand's response is, I don't have 1,000 gold crowns, but Sulin, that Aiel maiden general, steps right up and says, no, he's good for it. He'll take that wager. And, okay. But she says to him, but, that needs to be in full weight of gold. Which, so no, don't go in cheap on us. And Dorian's like, okay, done. And it's worth every copper if I lose this bet. This is his quote. Come to think of it, I'll outlive to collect if I win. So he does want to lose this bet, right? Because what happens if he wins the bet?
If he wins the bet, then Rand didn't get to the city in time, and Couladin is basically going to kill everybody he sees, and this person is not
Dorian's
going to
head is
survive
one of the
that.
ones hanging from the wall. Yeah, so please win the bet. Take my money. That's pretty funny. Now, Rand is baffled then. Sulin says he's got the money. It's like, please explain that. And apparently this is something Aviendha had not taught Rand. We get a quick little tidbit on Aiel culture. She says, you are in the role of a battle chief, okay? The Karakarn. So when the Stone of Tyr fell, you were there. You were the one that all the Aiel then followed. Therefore, you claim a tenth of everything the Aiel claimed from the stone. On top of that, you now rule Tyr. So everything in Tyr, a tenth of that, is yours. And then moving forward, everything the Aiel claim as their fifth, which you have granted us the fifth, you are our battle chief. You get a tenth of every fifth we claim. Dude, you're rich. Okay, she doesn't say that. That's not Aiel language, but that's the point. Rand is loaded now. He has no worries monetarily. All right, one last decision is made in this chapter. Rand chooses to send some Aiel to Cairhien to observe and then return regarding conditions of the siege. They'll meet up with them on the way back. Because running, these Aiel should make it as quickly as the Tyrans and Cairhien on horses. Again, they have no idea the capabilities of running Aiel. But he picks the Thunderdog clan. Ruark agrees, that's a good pick. But when he makes that pick, the maidens around him, Sulin and the others, are staring at him. They're not happy that he picked the Thunderdogs. Can you remind us what's been going on here? Because he keeps picking different clans for different tasks, and he hasn't picked any maidens yet. What's going on?
Okay, is it Thunderdogs or is it Stone Dogs? I was trying to remember the
This
name
time
of
it was Thunderdogs.
Okay, how many
Or
dogs
it
are
might
there?
have been Thunder something else, and I miswrote it.
Okay.
It's Thunder something. I thought it was
Okay,
Thunderdogs.
so he picks them and not the maidens. The maiden. Okay, so
It's setting something up that Rand keeps passing over the maidens for different tasks.
Well, they're protecting him. They're always around him.
Yes.
So if they get sent off to do something else, he's not going to have that protection anymore.
That's not what concerns Rand, though. He's also protecting them. Because they're women. He was raised to take care of women, to protect women. He is still not comfortable with women warriors putting their necks on the line for him. So when he sends anyone out on a task that might be dangerous, he never picks maidens.
Wow, I didn't catch that.
And they are getting frustrated, is what you're supposed to pick up here as they give him a look. It's like, really? Again? Dude. That's what's going on. That's what you're supposed to discern here. Okay, it was not Thunderdogs. I don't know where that came from. It's Thunderwalkers. Thunderwalkers.
Okay.
So good catch. There are not Thunderdogs. There are Stone Dogs. There are not Thunderdogs.
Okay.
It's like a big, massive hot dog that makes you bark badly. A Thunderdog. I don't know. I don't know where that came from. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. Let's move on to chapter 31. The far snows. We're still back with Rand. A little time has passed, and he's walking through the streets of the same Cairhien town, Ironrod, and he's alone again. And we learn a few more things. This town did not fall to the shadow. It had already been abandoned previously. Some homes, are just burned shells. But he's learned from Lan, looking around the place, they didn't all burn at the same time. This town has taken a beating over time. Various civil wars over the history of Karri, people fighting for the Sun Throne, has caused it to fall and be taken again and again by different groups, and different buildings get damaged. So some homes, some places, businesses are still fine. Others are just burnt out shells. And honestly, the last to live here were probably not even any official townspeople. They think it was just some brigands who'd been in the city, and then as the Shido were approaching, they just got gone. Because it was just a convenient place to hang out, and oh, no, this doesn't look good, and they scattered. There are apparently a lot of brigands around Karri, because when this is a period of unrest in Karri right now, and in periods of unrest, bad people take advantage of opportunities. So you've got a lot of thieves and ne'er-do-wells and whatever you want to call them, brigands, who have no allegiance to anybody except themselves, running rampant. Remember that. That's another one of those spoiler light moments.
Interesting.
There are brigands running all over Karri. We have seen experience with them before. Do you remember where?
Can you give me a hint?
It involved Nynaeve and Elaine.
The people who kidnapped them before they met up with Avienda and her friends.
Those were Karri and brigands. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. Now, thankfully, again, some of the buildings are still intact, and Rand has taken up in one of the larger of those. Rather than sleep in a tent again, he's like, no, there's a merchant's home here with beds. I am sleeping in a freaking bed for once, okay? He has an extra agenda with this, though. In choosing to sleep in a house with a real bed, he's hoping this will do something else. This will cause a change, perhaps give him a break from something. Do you know what that might be?
Well, he's been dealing with all the drama with Avienda lately, and this would give him, a change of scenery. Avienda surely wouldn't want to sleep in a building when she's used to sleeping in a tent. So
that's right. It's not the ideal way.
I'm going to get the peace and quiet that I've always dreamed of. Let me just sleep in this house tonight.
He is not comfortable with Avienda sleeping in the same room with him. It's been really tense and awkward. And I mean,
yes,
picture
awkward
him, a young man with a young woman who in the same room disrobes and gets into bed. Not his bed, but same room. Yeah, a little uncomfortable. He has some values, some morals. He's like, which also tells you something about his thoughts on Avienda, because clearly he must find her somewhat attractive too. And that makes this really hard that she's in my room. Okay. To give himself a better chance at peace as well, when Rand picks his place to stay, he turns to Sulin and the maidens that are with him and declares it the roof of the Winespring brothers, which is just funny. What was that about? Do you remember?
Well, first of all, when you declare something like that, the maidens cannot claim it as their own, because in order to be a Winespring brother, you would have to have drunk the water of the Winespring, which is basically the original ensemble of this story, right? You got Matt.
By that definition, Matt can come in.
Yeah. And that's about it.
I guess Egwene probably could come in.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's a really narrow group. Yeah. And he learned this from the maidens, because back in Ruidian, they had the roof of the maidens, and no one but maidens could come in. And they made that out of the house he picked. He's like, come on, really? But they're protecting him. So he's like, I don't want that to happen. So this is the roof of the Winespring brothers. And I guess brothers even then outs Egwene, because there's no way she can rock it as a brother.
You have a point there. So it's just him and
Yep.
Matt.
They could have a bro party if they want. Lan could maybe say, hey, I visited the Two Rivers. I sipped it. I'm here. But Moraine is out, man. Now, he also knows Moraine goes wherever she wants to go, but anyway, Sulin looks at him when he says this, and she's like, really, dude? Okay, I see what you're doing. Whatever. Have fun. And they let him have his fun. But not everybody does, because as he's returning back to his roof of the Wine Brothers, there's Guy Shane inside. Guy Shane that are serving him, they go wherever he goes, they do whatever he needs, and you're not going to change that. Some things you just must accept. But they do leave him in peace. As he walks in, they're ready to serve him, and he's like, shoo, shoo, and then they move aside. He climbs up the stairs, heads to his bedroom, and he just walks in. He's thinking, man, I'm just going to wash up and hit the sack. It's been a long day. That bed is going to be so good. And as he opens the door and steps in, there's Avienda. Stark naked, washing herself at the washstand. Yeah, awkward, you say. There's a moment of complete stunned shock as they look at each other. Now, what the heck is she doing? Well, she starts to babble at this moment, caught like this. She's like, I couldn't make a sweat tent in this town, so I thought I'd just try cleaning up the way you do, so using this wash basin, so that's why my naked body is all glistening right in front of you. I thought you'd be gone longer. And Rand, he's just busy trying to pick his jaw up off the ground, because basically, from the way the words are printed by Robert Jordan, he is struck by her amazing figure and her unbelievable beauty. He's never seen her like this. And yep, he's a full-blooded male. He's like, he doesn't know what to say, and he can't look away. Now, Avienda, I believe, senses the reaction she's getting out of Rand at this point, and she panics. That is not what she wanted to do to him. Now, maybe that is what she wanted to do to him, but that is not what she intended to do to him. She did not mean to have him see her like this. Now, that's a reference to something. Did you catch what that's a reference to? Because she says, I did not mean to have you see me.
Well, I mean, on the one side, she's always saying, Elaine is for you. I have nothing to do with you guys. She's your girl. I'm just going to, not bother you. But she also has a lot of built up frustrations. She obviously has feelings for Rand, but she never came to terms to that. But I didn't catch the other thing that you were going to mention about this.
Think back to conversations that Avienda and Rand have had previously that made Rand very uncomfortable. When she was talking about Rand belongs to Elaine. Okay. Right. And that relationship, you are hers, and stop looking at other women and blah, blah, blah. And she goes on talking about Elaine's assets, her figure, the way her various bodily attributes look. And she says at one point, haven't you seen her naked? I mean, surely you saw her bathe at some point. It's an attribute of courtship in Aiel custom that when a woman is interested in a man, she will arrange for this to happen, for him to see her. This is part of how you flirt. It's part of how you show your interest. And so she assumes Elaine would have done that for Rand, which of course Elaine hasn't, because it's totally different customs in the Westland, in the Waterlands. But this is what's happened here. And so by their customs, she would arrange this if she wanted to attract his interest. And no, that's not what I meant. That's what's going on. That's what's blaring in her head now. She's actually been working very hard to try not to attract his interest while still obeying the orders of the wise ones. So at this point now, seeing the reaction she's getting from Rand, she panics. And she says, I need to get away. I need to get away as far away as I can. I've got to get away now. And so I buy an airplane ticket on Southwest and go. That's what you do when you got to get away, right? That's commercials. Anyways, instead for her, what happens is a shimmering vertical line appears in the air near her and then seems to open up some sort of gateway to another place, because through it you can see snow, a full snowy scape, and icy wind and snow blows into the room out of the hole. And Avienda jumps through. What the heck? The gateway immediately begins to narrow, but Rand, on instinct, channels to block it from closing completely. He doesn't know what he's done. This is instinct. But he's sure this is a gateway for traveling. Capital T on that. Something Asmodean has talked to him about, but was apparently unable to demonstrate, didn't have enough access to the power to show him how to do it.
Okay, so when that gateway opened, I kept thinking of that Marvel movie. I don't know if it was like Doctor Strange or something, like where he does some motion with his hand and a gateway opens.
Very similar. That is a very good simile there, definitely, because that's exactly what Doctor Strange and his ilk do. They create gateways and jump through, even to parallel dimensions. But yes, exactly. So she jumps through, and then it starts to close, and Rand's like, and slams it locked. So it's still open, and now he takes a beat. He's like, okay, she just ran in there wet and naked. And that sure looks like a blizzard to me. I'm going to need to help and be a little better prepared than she was. So he grabs her clothes that are laying there and the blankets off her sleeping pallet and the pallet itself, which is just a thick rug, because she didn't care about a bed like he did. So grabs up all those things and then jumps through the gateway. The smaller gateway, but still big enough to jump through right after her. And it is freaking freezing. Rand sees Avienda running away as fast as she can through snow that's over her knees, and this wind is blowing, and he can barely see her. He starts running after her, saying, "Stop! Avienda, stop!" She doesn't know what this is. Aiel don't have a lot of experience with snow. And apparently she doesn't care that she's really cold, because he's really cold and he's fully channeling the power. We've learned in the past, when you're full of the power, you have less sensitivity to things around you. And yet he can feel how biting the cold is when full of Sidene. So it's really cold. So he runs after her, but because the snow is so deep, he's not making much progress. So he starts channeling the snow out of his way and melting what's in front of him, so he can actually pick up speed, and he's gaining on her, but still before he catches up, she disappears. She basically reaches ice, some body of water, and then the ice gives way, maybe partly because of Rand's channeling, and she falls under the surface of the ice. She's gone.
That's not good.
That's exactly what he thinks. But he's smart enough. Rand is not always. But at this moment, he's smart enough to think, I need to go save her, but if I just follow right after, we're both dead. So he takes a moment. He puts all the stuff he's carrying down. Then he does some power stuff to the ground to ultra heat the area, kind of turn it into hot glass that's just emanating heat. And that should last a little while. That should keep this area warmer, keep the stuff I just put down from getting all covered in snow and cold, because we're going to need these blankets, these clothes. And then he goes after her. Reaches around as he stretches out in the ice, reaching around in there, and he finds her hair. Just yanks her up by the hair. I'm like, do what you gotta do,
Ow.
man. Yeah, but she doesn't say ow. She is completely unconscious, maybe
Yeah.
dead. When he pulls out her dead, limp body, he is able to find a heartbeat, but it's very slow. Which happens when people fall into freezing water. Their bodies go into almost hibernation mode before they would die. So pulls her out. He's got to warm her up. He's got that. So he gets back to where this area that he had things a little warmer, and he dries her off. And this is not enough. I've got to do more. So then he uses the power to, they never use the word in the book, but he builds an igloo. Okay, totally builds a dome, walls out of just ice and snow, and creates this structure to get them out of the wind. It's definitely not an igloo, by the way, because there's something missing from what he creates. Did you catch it? What's missing from what he built?
It doesn't have a little chimney hole thing? Or...
That's true. That wasn't the one I was thinking of. Not all igloos have chimney things. It's kind of a fanciful creation in the cartoons. But they do have something that this does not have.
I don't know.
There's no door. There's no entrance.
Yes.
It's a solid
it's all
dome
around him.
or yep. They are just cut off from the outside. What he did with the power also melted everything and dried it, because he's also done some of these things as Modian's taught him, so the air is now warmer inside, and it's just a sandy, dry surface on the bottom. And that's better. He's like, oh, this feels a lot better now. But he's still kind of cold. And he feels her, and she is ice. Ice, ice, baby. She's totally not in a good point. And here he does what all of us who studied first aid learned as a last resort you can do to heat someone up who's suffering from hypothermia. I have a first aid merit badge as a Boy Scout. I think I learned this back then, but then again, I'm wondering, as a Boy Scout, did we really talk about this? I don't remember, but the quickest way, the best way to save someone suffering from hypothermia, if you can't get into the heat somewhere, is to get your clothes off and snuggle up together, skin to skin. That's how you can heat somebody back up quicker.
Yep, it's true.
So that's what he does. He's got her under the blankets. She's still really cold. He might be cold, but he's generating more body heat than she is. So he gets out of his clothes and he snuggles up as close as he can be. Now, this is all Rand's action. She's still completely unconscious. But he looks at her as he's got her so close. And he's struck by, as he looks at her peaceful, almost sleeping pose, dang, she's beautiful. That's what goes through his head. And then he instantly feels horrible. What a lech. I'm saving her life, and all I can think about is how beautiful she is as we're snuggled up naked together. What's wrong with me? I already have Elaine as a girlfriend. That's where he's at. But he's a young man, and she's an attractive woman, apparently. So this is the thought that's in his head. So trying to do the right thing, he doesn't go, oh, I can't do this anymore. No, he's like, okay, I got to get my mind off of these dirty, smutty things. That's where he's going. So I need to talk. I need to talk about things, distract myself. So the first thing that comes to mind, he starts talking about Elaine. Now that right there is hilarious. You're snuggled up naked with another woman and you're going to talk about Elaine. But the conversation about Elaine quickly leads him to kissing Elaine, and then he's like, I shouldn't be talking about kissing when I'm snuggled up this close to Amanda. That's not working. So he shifts his mind to Min. That's the next person to come to mind. And that doesn't work either, because apparently thinking about any woman when he's snuggled up naked to a beautiful person is not helping him. Jordan doesn't go into details on what's going on all around here, but, imagination. Okay. So Rand goes on to talk about other sorts of random topics. And there's actually some significant little nuggets tucked into this one-sided conversation. But for the sake of time, we're going to skip over all of those. If you're a first-time reader, you might want to go take a look at this again. Yes, Karri, I'm talking to you. Look
Okay.
carefully through the actual things he talks about. They are all intentional. They will all have a purpose later on.
Interesting.
Not just distracting himself. Jordan is foreshadowing. But at some point along the way, he realizes Avienda has warmed up. And not only has she warmed up, she is woken up and she is staring at him. From just inches away, those gorgeous green eyes are locked on his. And now he's very uncomfortable. And he's like, yeah, maybe I should get out of this now. But she looks at him and she says, basically, I promised to watch Rand for my near sister. Now, who's she referring to when she says that?
She's referring to her bestie, Elaine.
Right. Now, Rand doesn't know what she's talking about. So she's not really talking to him. She's just talking, which is exactly what he was doing. He wasn't talking to her. He was just talking. She's returning the favor. She's just talking out loud. And then she says, and I ran from him to shield my honor. But even here he followed me. The rings do not lie. I can run no more. I will run no more. What the heck is that about? What is she saying about rings don't lie and I'm not going to run anymore?
Okay,
What do you think's going on there?
so we have to think back to book 4 when a group of people arrived in Ruidian, and you, on the one hand, you had Matt and Rand go in there, but we have to also remember that 2 other people went there too, although we haven't quite heard of their experiences yet. That would be Moraine and Avienda. So
Yep.
she's talking about going to the rings, and something must have happened while she was there.
We have seen so far, since that point, the ramifications of what Avienda saw in the rings and what Moraine saw in the rings. It has not been made clear what that was yet, but I'm telling you, you've been seeing the ramifications. And here Avienda is laying it out clear. I saw this. I saw this. You know, basically, I was going to fall in love with Rand, and we were going to do this. We were going to be a thing. So I need to quit fighting it. I tried because of my near sister Elaine, but there's no point. I love this man. We're meant to be together. I'm going to stop fighting. So that decision has consequences. As Rand tries to untangle out of the blanket, she's like, grabs his head, pulls it in, and goes in for a kiss. And Rand, of course, being the better person, is like, no, we can't do this. Yeah, no. There's about maybe 10 seconds of what the, and then, oh, this is cool. And then apparently there's 2 to 3 hours of, this is really cool. Because there's this great line then. It says, some considerable time later, 2 hours, maybe 3. And I'm like, oh, dang.
Who's
Well, it's
counting
nice being
time?
young. That is not how this works. Okay. So at this point, they're relaxing comfortably together, unabashed in each other's nakedness, exhausted from what they've done, but just good. It's good. And Avienda's staring around at the igloo. What is this strange white stuff, basically? Because, again, snow, no idea what this is. But then she moves on to starting to put her clothes back on, and Rand's like, well, I guess this is done. Dang it. All right, fine. And then Rand moves on to say, when we get back, I'll talk to the wise ones and have them marry us. He's going to do the right thing. What's Avienda's reaction to that?
I don't think she's thinking of his customs. She's probably thinking of her own customs.
I find it quite entertaining. She's kind of like, really? What gives you the right to decide we're going to get married? Besides, you belong to Elaine. Now, Again, in Rand's mind, what they just did means they need to get married. Though he is feeling a little conflicted because of how he feels about Elaine. And then Min keeps jumping into his head. He doesn't know what's going on there. But Avienda, she just turns this all on him and says, hey, here's the deal. By your two river customs, I've talked to Egwene. I know these things. We cannot get married unless I ask my mother's permission. And I've not done that. And you should probably ask your father, and you haven't done that. But by Aiel custom, I would have to choose whether or not to ask you to marry me, and I have not done that, nor will I do that. So by both our cultures, we can't get married. That's the way it is. Figured out. Kind of leaves Rand gobsmacked. He's like, what? But then Rand turns the conversation to, okay, I hear you. But despite all of what you said, I started what happened just now, so it's on me to make it right and marry you. And she practically laughs. You started it? That's not how she sees it. That's part of the fact he has not understood what's been going on with Avienda for months now. But it doesn't matter. What they just did, not happening again, she says. Which is the last thing a guy in that situation wants to hear, by the way. But she says, it will not happen again. I now have toe to Elaine. And I will address that. That is none of your concern. And again, first-time readers, Karri, remember what she just said. She has toe to Elaine, which she will address.
Interesting.
And the chapter ends with Avienda chiding Rand. Get dressed already. Come on. You gonna lay there all day? And then staring at him as he goes about the process of getting dressed. I mean, he looked at her. She's like, fair enough. And he's thinking, this is awkward. I don't think dealing with Avienda has gotten any simpler from this experience we just had. All right. We have one last short chapter, which we're going to push on through fast because we're getting a little long here, but we can get this in. Chapter 32 is called A Short Spear, which is not a reference to Rand. Okay, I don't know why that came out. Rand can still sense the gateway that he blocked with the power, waiting off in the distance. So, using the power, he cuts the way out of the igloo. Again, no door, and he hadn't bothered to think of a door. He was just sheltering them. So, gets his little power laser, cuts a way out, pushes the ice out, and peeks his head out. The storm's over. There's sunshine. It's cold, but it's clear. But while he's poking around looking, he sees a big creature fly over the igloo, about 50 feet up in the air. There's two people riding this thing, some leathery creature bigger than a horse, and what the heck? Pulls his head back in and says, Javier, grab our stuff. We gotta go. She doesn't ask any questions. Okay, let's go. So they get out of the igloo, and as quick as possible, they're trying to sneak back to where the gateway is. You know, it was all blizzard before, but now they can see there's trees. It's a kind of a forested area they're in, so they're kind of run to this tree, run to that tree, run to this tree, trying to stay out of sight. They're not making as good a time as Rand would want because the snow is kind of deep, and Avienda's skirts are kind of bunching up in the snow, so he just reaches down and picks her up. And now he's running with her, and she's kind of like, really? Doesn't seem to appreciate being manhandled like that, but she doesn't stop him, so off they go. Rand thinks he could channel the snow out of the way, but he's afraid that might draw more attention on him. These people in the area might be looking for him for all he knows, so we're going to creep. We don't want to be seen. They get within 50 feet of where the gateway is. It's still there. Unfortunately, there are people there as well. 4 people on horseback, 4 women, and then about 20 other people, soldiers, all on foot. Of those women on horseback, 2 of them have silvery bracelets on their left wrist, get the right wrist there, with leashes to collars around the throats of two other women.
Oh my
Women
gosh,
who are just
where are
wearing
they?
simple gray dresses. The men are in armor, some more pointed than others, but the point of all this is Rand totally recognizes these people from the way they are all set up and deduces where they are. So, seeing all that, what can we conclude? Where are they?
I do believe they might be in Sanchan country.
Ding, ding, ding! Give her a cookie. Rand puts Avienda down, quietly asks, "Can you shield those two women with the collars? They are demonic. They can channel. We need them shielded." Now, Avienda, this is her first experience with any of this. She's like, the two other women who have the wrist things, they can channel as well. Their strength is weak, like they've never practiced with it, but I can sense they can channel. Now, this is something we know about women who use the power. Over time, they do develop the ability to sense when others have ability in the power. So Avienda can just sense these two can also channel. What does this suggest then, or lean into about those two women holding the bracelets?
Well, we learned about this in a previous, I want to say previous book. It might have been Egwene that was talking about this, where,
Yep.
was this the Great Hunt?
First in the Great Hunt, yes.
And then talked about maybe
Double down in Shadow Rising.
Yeah. So what she discovered was that not only can the leashed ones channel, but the people who are controlling them can also channel. And
but they don't realize it.
But a lot of people don't know that.
Right. It's like a big, dirty secret amongst the Seanchan. Avienda senses it right away. This is news to Rand, not news to us. As you say, we've learned this already. Other characters have already discovered this, but this is how Rand discovers it. He rolls with it quickly. Okay, can you shield all four of them then? She's like, yes, duh. Like, this is easy. I've learned to do this sort of thing. Can you handle the rest? They got a lot of weapons, spears. They might come at you really fast. If one of them spears you, I'm not so good at healing. I can shield, but the healing part? Rand's like, no, I got this. I can handle the rest if you can stop the channelers. All right, no problem. So, bam, they go into action. Avienda slams that shield on the women. The women gasp when they've been cut off from the power. Rand at the same moment then uses weaves of air to basically freeze everyone in place. They're statues. Even the ones on horses. They're locked into the horses, and the horses can't move. And then they just go running right through the people to the gateway. Everyone could see them, but they can't do a thing about it. They're stuck. The only ones who could do something without moving are the channelers, and Avienda has them shielded. As they reach the gateway, though, they can't see their room, his room, through the gateway. They just see a gray blankness over the gateway. Rand's like, it doesn't look good. That seems to be something of Sidene. It's been woven into the gateway. I didn't do that. He also senses the hole seems a little smaller than when he left it. This gray thing, it could be a trap. It could be Asmodean. This could be him taking his opportunity. He saw what's here and he set up something, and we go through this and we're dead. There's no real options of what to do here. It's like, we kind of have to go through with it. Staying here, that's not an option because of these people. As he's muddling over what to do, he looks at these people and especially turns his attention to the two demonic, the ones who are collared. He's like, I would love to free these ladies. That's one good thing I could do here. So he touches the collar, and the Sidene in him seems to react with this element, whatever this is, because he feels a jolt of power. And both women, the one collared, the one holding the bracelet, they both start spasming, convulsing in pain, in consequence. And he's like, okay, that won't work. Got it. Avienda, would you take a look at this? It's like, can you get this off here? Maybe a woman can do it, because I can't, apparently. And as Avienda starts working with it, the one who's colored starts freaking out. And she's begging the one holding this leash to help her, to save her from the Marath demonic. Now, we learned that term back in Falme. Do you remember what Marath demonic means?
Marath demonic means someone who can channel that has not been basically leashed by their device.
Right.
But in the old tongue, it also means someone, basically someone who should be leashed.
Yes. Someone who's wild and out of control and is extremely dangerous. That's what the Shanshan culture has come to understand. Someone who can channel, who is not leashed, is an extreme danger to everyone. And this person is trying to free me. Very dangerous. Now, the other Soldam, she's focused on Rand. She recognized that the air binding that has held them in place, that wasn't this other woman who did it. That's this guy. This guy channeled, and she shares this with one of the other women on horseback, a Lady Morsa. Now, Lady Morsa catches on to that right away because she's been looking at that man going, wait a second, I know this guy. And it turns out she was in Falme. She was one of those who had come with the Shanshan to Falme. She saw Rand. Not that she knew it was Rand at the time, but she saw what he did there. She saw him appear in the sky with Baalzamon. Not that she knows anything about Baalzamon, but she saw. She realizes this is a dangerous man. Now, there's some words then about Falme, about the Karen, Seekers, Listeners, the Empress, the Tower of Ravens, and it's all going right over Rand's head. He doesn't catch any of this. All of this has huge meaning. For first-time readers, like you, Karri, most of this also probably went right over your head. Some of these things might have had meaning for you. I'm curious, did any of those words mean something?
I kept thinking about the Daughters of the Nine Moons is somehow related to some of these terms, but I don't know for sure. I know we learned about that in a previous chapter. So these are obviously different types of Shanshan, is how I'm understanding this, but it was very intriguing.
All things of meaning to their culture, sure.
Yes.
So keep track of all these terms. They're all going to have more meaning later on. But again, for Rand, nothing. He picks up one teeny little tidbit here that he thinks is significant, and that's that this return, this Karen, apparently is something the Shanshan now, after Falme, have put off until later. So he may have accomplished something good there. They're not coming right back. Okay, yay. Rand urges Avienda, hurry up now. Come on, finish with this woman. Get her free. And Avienda snips at him like, hey, I'm doing what I can. You know, you almost killed them with what you tried to do. Back off. Let me do my thing. In the meantime, the Shanshan are kind of ignoring Rand and Avienda, and now they're having conversations amongst themselves about that Falma thing and what people know happened and what they pretend didn't happen and what they can and can't say. And apparently one of the people amongst them is a seeker. We don't know what that means yet, necessarily. Though we did learn a little bit about a sneaker. About a sneaker. We wear those when we run and exercise. Okay. We learned a little bit about a seeker in the last book. Do you remember? Over in Tenchico.
Was that the lady Egyanin?
She wasn't a seeker, but she interacted with a seeker.
Interesting.
It was a guy. who visited her.
Ooh, was that the guy that wasn't the guy that was in the Dark Friend Social in book 2, was it?
No,
No, that was
not that
somebody
guy.
else. Okay.
But a
Can't
different
remember
guy
the
who
previous
showed
guy.
up at her place, did not know she had people down in the basement, the person down in the basement, hidden.
She was very scared of this person. She
He was a seeker.
she was
Okay?
afraid.
Seekers have some authority, some power.
Yeah.
And there's a seeker with this group who was on a mission with these people, but now when he hears how they're talking and he interprets it as questioning the choices, the decisions of the Empress, he says, you are under arrest. And I'm taking this Soldam, this Damane, you're all going back for questioning. And they're like terrified, just like that. But at the same time, they're also like, yes, sir. Like, you can't question that. Ultimate power, all of a sudden, just flipped. We're learning something about Shantian culture here. You don't get all the answers yet, but remember, this takes place. Now, Jalindin, the seeker, seems to kind of be the one in charge all of a sudden, and he turns to Rand and he says, you need to turn yourself in. If you turn yourself in, I'll see that you are taken to the Empress, and you will be safe, and you will be treated fairly. Doesn't say you will live, but you will be treated fairly. If not, a quick death, a very painful one, likely awaits you, because this is not a safe place to be. And trust me, everybody's coming for you. Well, Rand decides, okay, that's our cue to leave. Let's go now. Especially noting the gateway seems to have gotten even a little smaller. So he says, Avienda, we're done. No more time. Let's go. We're going to jump through this hole. Ready for anything. We don't know what's on the other side, so we can't see. So let's just do it and deal with it. So they jump through. And as they jump through, they're in Rand's room. There's this Modian off to the side, sitting against the wall. And Rand slams a shield on him, blocks him off from the power instantly, even though he doesn't seem to be holding the power. And he turns back to where they jumped through, and you can't see the gateway. But then he detects something of Sidene there, and he swipes it away. And there's the gateway. So there was something over it, making it invisible to the naked eye. And once he can see through, he also can see the Shanshan, who can see him. And when Rand jumped through, he released his hold on them. So all of them that were locked in place by air are free now. When they see him, one of them throws a spear at him. Rand stops the spear in place midair with, a channel of air, and the gateway slams shut. It finishes closing, and the spear was still midway through, slices that sucker off. So just a 2-foot section of the spear is free now on his side of the gateway. The rest is lost on the other side. And Rand comments, I'm glad the Damane hadn't recovered enough to channel. That it was hard enough just with soldiers ready to attack. And Avienda's like, you idiot. You let them go? What were you thinking? I tied off their shields. They are not channeling ever again. They are enemies. You don't go soft on enemies. You should have left them stuck in air forever and let them die that way. You see, they clearly wanted to kill you. And that's harsh. But Rand also kind of thinks, I guess you kind of have a point. The stakes are pretty high here. I need to survive to make it to Shio Ghul, and I could have just been killed by that spear. So, yeah, maybe that was kind of stupid. Avienda then softens up a little bit, complimenting Rand on his decision to hide the hole. Because otherwise maidens might have found it and come searching for them out there in that distant place. Maidens will go anywhere. And this Modian then speaks up and says, well, actually, one of the guys, Shane, came in looking for you guys, and I diverted them from this place, saying Rand and the young maiden are not wanting to be disturbed. And then there was a really funny thing that happened because next thing I know, she just starts laughing and runs from the room. And then down outside this room, down outside that window, a bunch of maidens showed up and just were shouting and banging on their shields and making the most lewd suggestions of what you two should be doing together. And this went on for over an hour. Rand is so embarrassed. He's blushing. He's like, criminy, we were on the other side of the world and they still know what we just did. Avienda, she's like, can you describe that guy, Shane? And when he does, she's like, oh, that's my near sister. Yeah, she's been hoping I'd shack up with you. I am going to deal with that girl. That's her reaction, which is kind of funny. Rand then asks Avienda, there's a couple hours left in the night. I imagine you probably want to get some sleep after all this. Would you mind finding another place so I can just talk with Natal here for a few minutes and kind of work through some things? And once again demonstrates what an idiot he is about understanding women. She's like, oh, sure. And walks off somewhere else looking completely miffed. Like, we just had a moment and you are brushing me off now. Not cool, Rand. But all he's thinking about is, this is Asmodean. This is a Forsaken. You don't know that. I need to have a conversation here. He doesn't see the whole picture. Once they are alone, he turns on Asmodean, trying to decide, is it time to kill him now? And basically saying, okay, you made this thing invisible. Why did you not tell me about that? This invisible thing. That seems like something would have been helpful for me to know. And Asmodean just says, you never asked. Schmuck. And then he claims, there is so much that I could teach you. And it's impossible to think of everything you'd like to know and in what order you want me to teach it. I've been teaching you things every day. Natal then goes on to say, and hey, you went through this gateway. That's a massive amount of power when you locked it open. Anyone who can channel within any proximity here would have felt that. So, of course, I sensed it right away, and I came and I saw what you'd done. That is not an easy thing to do. I know Demandred could do it. Maybe Simmerhosh, Luce Theron could do it. But very rare people having that much power. When I saw what had happened, I covered it up. I covered for you. I could have taken advantage of that. I did not. I have proven myself as your man, Lord Rand. You believe him?
Don't trust him.
Don't trust him. He's trying to say, I've proven myself as trustworthy. Rand is kind of on your side. I still don't trust him. But he does state with clarity, from now on, when I ask you to teach me something, you will teach me that. And then 2 other things that I didn't even think to ask about. Every time, I want 2 more things than what I ask about. And don't you dare hide something from me. And the chapter ends with Rand then telling Asmodean to teach me now about how to avoid flows of power that I can't see. He's thinking of how to be better prepared in the future should a female channeler attack him, like those Damane that he was potentially up against there. And Asmodean's like, oh, that is very hard. And it's like, well, we got 2 hours till sunrise. Get busy. Try real hard. And that's the end of the chapter. And that is the end of our episode. And because you are a first-time reader, we do not go into a spoiler room section to ruin things for you, because that would be very unkind.
Unless it was for the next 5 chapters or so. That's all I can be spoiled up to.
Karri, you have done a fantastic job filling in for Zach. I know he'll appreciate that you came. He'll enjoy watching this episode. He might feel like, oh man, I got to step up my game with some of my theories.
No, he's
she came up with stuff I wouldn't have thought of.
He's more wittier than me. I tried. It's hard to compete,
You did wonderfully. And all of you watching this episode, give us some feedback. Put some comments on how well Karri did. Come on, she didn't even see these notes and things we were talking about until just minutes before the episode.
I didn't have time to prepare, guys.
See, no prep. She came in cold. She rocked it. If you did enjoy this, again, remember to like the episode, subscribe to our channel if you haven't done it yet. Check out all the other things we have here. And let me run our outro here to remind you of all the other ways you can connect with us. Like Karri, you can come join our Discord and be in conversations we're having over there all the time. And you can also be one of the patrons of our show and join us in live recordings. That doesn't mean I'll put you on screen. This is special. Karri doing us a solid, but she's been with us in the chat through other episodes, and you are all welcome to being a patron. And then again, all these other ways, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even email. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know you. Thanks for joining us today, and we will talk to you next time. Say goodbye, Karri.
Bye, guys.
And that's it.